Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. I'm happy to say that after several weeks of hiatus, we got the Coach's Corner panel discussion back this evening. I'm going to start the show off in the first hour, and then I'm going to be joined by a very special guest who was actually on the Women of Golf show this week on Tuesday morning with LPGA professional Cindy Miller and myself. She was joining us, Elisa. Gaudet. She was on the Women's of Golf show, as I said, Tuesday morning, and I decided to bring her back Thursday night just to expand the conversation a little bit. We obviously only had limited time on the Tuesday morning show, so we had her on that second half hour and just didn't get a chance to cover everything. So she'll be joining me for my interview portion after the guys are done here on the Coach's Corner panel. But welcome to the show. It's July 20th. We're really coasting through the summer, it seems, and we're going to be in August here before we know it. And I'll tell you, I'll be glad in a way because the heat down here in Florida is getting pretty fierce here the last few days, and I'm going to be looking forward to a little bit of a fall reprieve here. But anyways, enough complaining. Glad you could join us live here. Of course, as always, we're live Thursday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. Just go to blogtalkradio.com and type in up in the search key Golf Talk Live, or just extend it / Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page for the live broadcast, again, from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast. And if you can't join us live, just go to that link and scroll down to the on-demand section. After the show has been completed, of course, and a few minutes for it to compile, the auto-recorded feature is, of course, engaged, so you can listen to the recorded version if you're not able to join us live, or you can listen to it anytime, whenever it's convenient for you. And in the on-demand section of all the previously aired shows up to including tonight's are there. So if you missed one, not to worry, just go back and listen to it when it's convenient for you. Also, you can go to Stitcher.com or iTunes.com, and under the podcast section, just type in Golf Talk Live again, and that will take you to the appropriate pages there if you'd like to listen on to those platforms as well. So that's iTunes.com and Stitcher.com, two great platforms as well that you can listen to it. But again, thank you for those of you tuning in and listening live tonight's broadcast. Also, if you want to call in anytime during the live broadcast and speak to either myself or any of the guests, whether it be on the panel or on my guest interviews on the second half of the show, you can do so by calling area code 646-716-4667. Or you're welcome to email me any questions or comments about the show to ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And if you're somebody in the golf industry that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to be on the show, or maybe you have and haven't been on for a while, maybe you've got something new that you want to share with the audience, by all means, feel free to reach out to that email as well. And again, it's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And also, as always, as most of you know by now, if you've been following the program for any length of time, I post it through all social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO, CEO in caps, and obviously on LinkedIn.com as well. So go to any of those social media platforms, just type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you right there as well. Or, as I said on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. Got three great guys on the Coach's Corner panel tonight. All of them have been on here before, whether it be on the panel or as special guests. First up, of course, is Pete Buchanan, founder and director of instruction and owner of the Plain Simple Golf LLC, which houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. He's been teaching for over the past 30 years, and Pete has really been simplifying his golf swing philosophy in an effort to make it, well, what else? Simple for players to play this great game. Also on the panel tonight is Brandon Stooksbury, been on the show many, many times, and particularly on the panel as well, and fast becoming one of my favorites. Director of instruction at the prestigious Idle Hour Club in Macon, Georgia. and has been ranked in Golf Digest Best in State Instructor Rankings for Georgia, and has also been honored as the 2015 Central Georgia PGA Teacher of the Year. Specialized in competitive player development and enjoys teaching players of all levels from beginner right up to the PGA Tour. He's been an 11-year member of the PGA, certified in instruction, was also ranked by Golf Digest Best Young Teacher, also known as the Top 40 Under 40. Golf Range Association of America also slated him as Top 50 Growth of the Game Teacher Professional. He's an honorable mention from the U.S. Kids Top 50, and is a 5-time PGA Award winner, as well as a best-selling author of the Wedge book, which I happen to have a copy of. And coming out this fall, he's told me he's coming out with the putter book, so we're going to look forward to that, and we'll get an update on that a little bit later in the broadcast. And rounding out our panel tonight is our special guest panelist, Brett Cohen. He's going to be picking up on topic 3, as you remember we had, and I'll give you an update on that as well. He's a golf fitness instructor and Fitness Over 50 authority, founder of New York Golf Fitness Guru. Brett has been involved in the fitness industry over 17 years, specializing in working with golfers and individuals over 50 like me, and is the only trainer in New York to hold 2 golf fitness certifications, TPI Institute and Czech Institute, as well as 2 fitness certifications specializing in the mature population, like me. Functional Aging Institute and National Academy of Sports Medicine Senior Fitness Specialist. So, wow, that's a lot to get out, guys. Guys, welcome to Coach's Corner panel.
Thank you, Ted. It's good to be here.
Thanks as always, Ted.
All right. So, guys, as I sort of alluded to both off the air and touched very briefly here just a moment ago, we had 2 previous sessions with Brett on here, and Brett, I'm going to turn this over to you in just a second, but I just want to give a quick recap, so just to bring everybody up to speed. Back on March 9th on a Coach's Corner panel, we hit topic number 1. Of course, they're all sort of fitness related, and the topic 1 was what you should do to prepare for the upcoming golf season. Of course, we're well into the season now for many of you, especially up in the Northeast, so you should have done lots to prepare by now. On May 25th, we hit topic 2, which is the most important piece of equipment you own, which of course is you. And this week we're going to hit topic 3, what your golf pro doesn't know but should. So without further hesitation, Brett, I want to let you take it over and read out our opening statement, and then we'll get into some discussion with everybody on the panel, all right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start the way I have on my previous appearances, which is to tell the listening audience that I'm the only one on the panel that does not teach golf. As you mentioned, I'm a golf fitness instructor, and as such, what I do is help golfers assess and overcome the physical restrictions that prevent them from playing their best golf. And I do that by measuring movement efficiency as it relates to the golf swing with the screening process. Once I finish that screening process and I know what they can and cannot do, then I can create an exercise program to help them overcome the physical restrictions that are preventing them from playing their best golf. Ultimately, all of us here have the same objective, and that's to make golfers better golfers. I'm approaching it from mostly a hardware perspective by working with the body and getting it to move better, and the pros are using a software perspective, trying to reprogram or program the brain and to tell the body how to move.
Well said. All right, so let's do. Let's again go through the opening statement that we want to read, and then what I want to do is I'm going to get into our first topic, if you will, our first question of the night, and pose it to the other guys. So, Brett, just go ahead and read the opening statement just to clarify for everybody so that they understand where we are, and then we'll go from there.
So the topic for tonight was what your golf pro doesn't know but should, and what that refers to is what I call the body swing connection, which is how your body affects what we see as common swing faults. So I would start by asking, Pete and Brandon and yourself, like, what are the common challenges that you see in teaching golf to a new student, or in other words, what would be the top 2 or 3 swing fault characteristics that you see in your students that we could kind of correlate to a screen and the physical restriction, and give you some help there.
Perfect. Pete, I'm going to let you go first, Brandon, and then I'll wrap it up, and then Brett, feel free to, as each of us sort of say our piece, if you want to jump in and add some thoughts or any suggestions that we can better utilize the connection with our students. So, Pete, go ahead. What are some things, as Brett was asking, that you're experiencing with some of your students that are maybe causing some restriction with their swings?
Well, I think, first of all, posture is number one for me. Getting them into a starting position that makes it, easier for them to move. A lot of times they're in a posture that doesn't allow the movements that we're looking for, with the exception of, I've worked with a level 3 medical professional, TPI, so I'm familiar with, certain things where movement can be an issue or stability or mobility can be an issue. But I think posture, number one. I think I've run into some situations where some players are, continually swinging the club out to in or over the top or whatever phrase you want to use, and it's more because of shoulder restrictions than anything else. It's the only way they can go. And so you try to get the club on the inside, and it just doesn't work. So I've seen quite a bit of that lately. And, basically, for me, I'm always looking at, how they can coordinate the arm swing with how the body moves. I think that's a big challenge for a lot of them because, if the posture's not right, if they don't have, some sort of mobility and some stability in what they can do, then it's hard for them to get the arms and the body moving in sync together to make some, more consistent strikes and consistent swings.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Well said. Yeah. No, well said, Pete. Brandon, what about yourself? What are some things, restrictions, I guess, if you will, that physical restrictions that you're seeing, in addition maybe what Pete has already just laid out, that's obviously causing some issues for some of your students? And then I'm going to throw in a couple things that I see, and then, Brett, I'm going to get you to sort of point out some things that you do or ways that we can help our students with some helpful tips. So, Brandon, go ahead.
Am I allowed to just say ditto?
Yes.
It's the easy way out, Brandon. But that's okay.
Look, I think you hit the nail on the head. I might add one. Posture at address is certainly an issue. I mean, the lack of pelvic tilt is a real big problem for a lot of players. They just don't understand how to move their hips and their core and set up in posture. And then I'll go as far as adding the same issue, and you might have been hitting on it when you talked about the synchronization of the arms and the body, but staying in your posture and rotating enough through impact is a gigantic problem. I deal with it myself as a player, and even more so I see it with my amateurs, whether they're kids or middle-aged adults or in their later years. Very, very few people have enough, internal mobility, internal rotational mobility in their lead hip, or flexibility to be able to stay in that posture. And it's a real problem.
Yeah, well said as well. And Brett, just before you jump in here, I just want to add a couple of other things here that I notice as well. And then I have actually a question for you based on what I'm about to say. One of the things that I see, obviously particular with, and I'm going to zero in on the 50-plus crowd since I fall into that, unfortunately, at this point in my life. Yeah. But is the actual restrictiveness of the turn itself. You especially see this in a lot of your older players. Very restrictive backswing. They just don't have the flexibility anymore. And I've actually even now started seeing more where there's a restriction, believe it or not, in their follow-through. Just because, and I think where this goes into is a lot of your core muscles, they're just tight. Probably their shoulder muscles as well just don't have the flexibility and the strength anymore to support the different movements that are required in a golf swing. But I want to ask you, I guess, so those are two areas that I see, is the restriction in the backswing and a restrictiveness even in the forward swing. Or the follow-through, as it's referred to. But is this something, Brett, that is mainly common to older golfers, or is this something that you're seeing as well with some of your students that come in that may be a little bit younger? I know you deal primarily with 50-plus, but obviously I know you've had some access to younger players. Is this something
Yeah.
that's limited to the 50-plus crowd, or is this something that can affect really anybody? And then I want you also to respond to the other guys.
Yeah, sure. I do deal with mostly the 50 and over crowd, but I have younger golfers. 2 of them are in their 30s. One has less restriction in the hips and thoracic spine, the 2 areas where we need to move, be the most mobile, but yet he does struggle with some other issues that we're working on. And one who's just a few years older than him, who's only 33, struggles with all of the above as much as some of my older golfers. So what you're bringing up is common across the board, especially the ones that come seek my help. They're coming to seek my help because they know their body doesn't move the way it needs to play golf the way they want to, and there's something they need to fix or get taken care of so they could play better. So the reality is that golfers between 25 and 65, anybody in working stage of life, they're becoming sedentary and stiff. It's just a reality of modern day life. We're sitting way too much. This is common knowledge these days. And they come to a sport that requires ballistic rotation and expect to be powerful and consistent ball strikers, but those two just don't match up, as our golf pros just attested to. Right? So they have trouble getting in posture, maintaining posture, hitting the ball using the right kinematic sequence, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And those are usually a result of what we call a broken pattern or physical dysfunction, which is a great lead into something I think the listeners should know about. It's the way that I look at how the body moves or how efficiently the body moves, and it's called the joint-by-joint approach. Because we've heard some of these terms, stable, mobile, flexible already. I'm going to give those a little bit more credence. So the joint-by-joint approach simply states that the body works in the alternating patterns of stable segments connected by mobile joints. And if the pattern is altered anyway, then we can expect dysfunction and predictable compensations will occur. So one of the most predictable compensations is in the low back. Our hips designed to be mobile, thoracic spine designed to be stable, the lumbar spine, the segment between those two, is designed to be stable. So if we lose mobility in the hips and thoracic spine as a result of sedentary lifestyle or movement in one pattern, then we could expect excessive movement in the lumbar spine, which is not desirable. Too much rotation in the lumbar spine causes irritation, pain, and injury. That's why low back pain is the number one injury complaint amongst amateur golfers. I hope that answers your question.
Right. Yeah, no, that's perfect. So let me just throw this out here then, Brett, and then guys, both Pete and Brandon, by all means feel free if you've got any specific questions that you might have for Brett pertaining to this. But the first and foremost one, what's causing some of this inflexibility, if you will, with the older guys? Is this just an age thing? Is it just lack of movement? Or I know you did touch on it. You said, we're sitting down a lot more behind a computer desk and this sort of thing. But I want you to talk, what are some of the common causes for some of this, in addition to maybe aging, and then maybe give some options for the guys here on what they can do to maybe help their students regain some of that flexibility.
You're asking the golf pros now, Ted? For me?
No, I'm asking you. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. I thought you were asking Pete and Brandon. So how to regain flexibility? To me, it requires a 3-step process, and I write about this quite a bit on my blog. The first step is to have a habit of self-massage. Self-myofascial release is a skill that you learn using a tool like a massage stick or foam roller or certain balls that are used to create or change the density of the soft tissue that our body's made of. That's the myofascial connection. That tissue crosses all joints. So when we manipulate it, when we get a massage, we feel better, we move better. The second stage is elongation, which is stretching. And I have my golfers stretch 2 different ways. One, in a static form, which is to take a certain muscle and stretch it for an extended period of time, and then in a dynamic form or in a pattern, which helps them develop a better movement pattern overall. So manipulation of the tissue and elongation of the tissue are the two essential things they need to be doing to maintain flexibility and mobility in the body.
Perfect. Exactly what I was looking for. Brendan, I'm going to start with you this time. And I've got a question that I want to ask you, and then, by all means, if you want to relay it into a question to Brett to get his thoughts on this as well. But, obviously we want to be able to, we're not fitness instructors as Brett is. We're teaching instructors, so we're focusing on the golf swing. We're focusing on other areas to help our players improve. But how valuable is it for you to be able to isolate what some of the physical issues or impediments, if you will, for your players? How does that help you then translate that information in working with your students? So in other words, you've isolated what the problem is physically. How does that help you as an instructor to then be able to work with a student to overcome some of those obstacles, possibly with the help of a fitness instructor, or certainly maybe some general movements? How valuable is that information to you?
Well, I think you might have asked two questions in there. I'm not sure you meant to, but
I did.
The first thing I'll say is it's hugely valuable to me. So much so that I ended up going to the Titleist Performance Institute and going through level 1, so I had that knowledge. So ultimately I felt like it was valuable enough to spend the money to do that, to gain some of that experience on my own. The reasons why it's valuable, which I think is probably your second question, is how do I use it, and how does it help me translate information back to the student? The first thing it does is it empowers me with information that keeps me from injuring them or asking them to do something that will ultimately hurt them. My first suggestion is always to try to go get it fixed or improve it. And now that's not my expertise. That's where our other panel members come in, right? But I always suggest that. Unfortunately, in my world, that suggestion isn't always heeded.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right. That's not ideal. But that's the world I live in, right? And so now I'm faced with someone standing on my tee, continuing to want to pay me money to get them better, and they're not going to do what's necessary from a physical standpoint to get there. And so I have to make sure I know enough about what's going on with them so that I don't give them something to do that hurts them, number one. Number two, it allows me to know what I can and can't expect their body to do so that I can begin to formulate a plan with them to work around it. Let me give you a good example. If I have someone who has mobility issues in their right, or let's call it their trail shoulder, right, which is hugely important in being able to plane the golf club on the way down, okay? If I can't get them in that position because their shoulder is not mobile enough, and I tell them to go see a fitness instructor, and they tell me I don't have time for that, or I don't want to do that, or whatever, then I've got to start to have a conversation with them about how we're going to play a manageable fade. And I'm just going to have to live with the golf club being a little bit steeper than I would like it to be on the downswing, because I can't ask them to shallow it because, A, they can't, and B, they might hurt themselves trying. And until they can go and get some help to get mobility back in that shoulder, in my hypothetical example, then that's the steps we're going to have to take. You're going to have to play with the shaft a little steeper than what would be ideal on the way down. It's going to produce a pattern that starts left and peels a little to the right. We've got to start figuring out ways to play that and manage that pattern. And so that's a hypothetical example of how I would use that information to try to translate improvement to my student, assuming they won't go the proper step to someone who's specialized and get it fixed.
Yeah, and Brandon, thank you for that. You raise a very interesting point. And Pete, I want to kind of ask you a similar question, but given the example that Brandon has just relayed is a common one, even regardless of it or irrespective of it being a hypothetical, it's a fairly common situation. Pete, I'm sure you have some, I guess, examples to share as well that you've experienced. But, I want to ask Brett, after you talk, Pete, a question as well, sort of a follow-up question. But, Peter, what's some of the examples that you've seen out there of immobility, and are we doing the players a disservice? As Brandon has just pointed out, we've certainly encouraged them to go and seek out, proper help in that area. Either they're refusing to do so or unable to do so, or whatever their rationale behind it. What do we do at this point? Do we continue on with the lessons, or do we sort of put our foot down and run the risk of losing that student? What's your thought on that, and how do we best handle that? If we know it's the right move for them to seek out professional help in that physical area, and we allow them to not go that route, are we running the risk, as Brandon said, of allowing that player to be hurt should he or she decide not to go that route? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Brandon said it right away. In that case, if they're not going to get any help relative to the situation, then we have to give them the alternatives. What are the alternatives from a golf swing standpoint that they're going to have to do based on the lack of mobility that they have? And we have to give them options. I know from my personal experience, having a lot of ball flights, cause and effect help, it helps me also understanding a lot of these situations to be able to, go in and know the cause and effect and know how to adapt that to the situation that I see and give the player the options to say, look, in an ideal situation, this is where the swing would be that I'd like to see. But based on the physical limitations, we can't go there. So we have two choices. We can get you some help so you can free yourself up to make this type of move, or if that's not going to be the case, here's what we have to do in reference to that to make the golf swing work and make it effective for you to play. And as Brandon said, in that particular case, my chiropractor, I can tell you right away, had the same issue with the shoulder, and until he got the shoulder fixed, there's no way that club was coming down from the inside. It just was not going to do it. And as soon as that shoulder was fixed and healed, boom, here comes the club. Now it's right down exactly where we wanted it. But what I did for him in the meantime, because he likes to play, is we gave an alternative setup and an alternative direction. And as Brandon also mentioned, he enjoyed the fade for a while. That's the only thing we could do to make it effective for him to play, but also to not have any injury and further damage what was there. So, and along that line too, I think it's also important, not to lose sight of in a TPI situation as well, the chiropractic side and being able to free the body up. Because I know from personal experience, I had lost a ton of range of motion, and with a few adjustments, I got almost all of it back. So for me, it was just a situation that I wasn't lined up properly, and once that was done, it opened up a whole new world for me. I was like you. I'm 54, but approaching 50, I was like, man, I've lost all kinds of flexibility, and that really wasn't the case. I was flexible, I just wasn't mobile. So,
that's a great point as well, Pete, and thank you for that. Brett, my question to you is this: Brandon and Pete and I are kind of in the same boat. We're working with students, and unfortunately, some of the younger students have that flexibility, have that mobility. That's, I would say, ideal. But as we work with some of our more aging students or pupils, if you will, more and more of some of the scenarios that you've just heard are creeping in there. I think one of the misnomers that a lot of people have out there is when they hear fitness or they hear, any other variety of words creeping in there, they're just very resistant. So how can you help us as instructors sort of get over that hurdle? Because we all have golfers that are 50 plus in our repertoire, and we want to be able to help them. We want to be able to improve their golf game, but if they've got sort of a mindset of X on the fitness side of things, I don't have time. What can you suggest to simplify but still get results, so that they're not spending a lot of time, but they're spending a sufficient amount of time and getting, I hate to use this term, but the biggest bang for their buck?
Yeah. So I wanted to mention something that Brandon brought up, which was that we don't live in an ideal world. And in an ideal world,
right,
the golfer would be receptive to all of the above. He's coming to you for instruction. Obviously, they're taking golf seriously. They want to play golf better. They may be slightly resistant to fitness. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe it's an economic issue. Could be a little bit of both. Not really sure. It's an individual case. But ultimately, if we had our way, you would have not just the golf pro involved, but the golf fitness professional involved, and then, as Pete mentioned, a medical professional when necessary. Sometimes I have to refer a client to a chiropractor, acupuncturist, etc., to do work that I'm not trained to do. There are certain things that I can't accomplish through exercise. So that being said, I'm going to go into what we often talk about is our definition of what it means to be fit for golf, which is slightly different from what the general population thinks fitness or exercise is. I think still the majority of people think that fitness is about looking good or looking better. So someone that's typically lean or muscular looks fit. But golf fitness isn't necessarily about looking fit, although that may come as a result of your exercise program. It's about moving better. So not so much about looking better, but about moving better. It's all about being able to move effectively and efficiently in order to produce a powerful and predictable golf swing with a minimal risk of injury. And in order to do that, you need to have the mobility, stability requirements on board. It's like what I spoke about earlier, the body-swing connection. The joints that need to be mobile need to be sufficiently mobile that you're going to be able to move into the position and not hurt yourself and hit the ball using the right sequence, which is going to be from the ground up. There are going to be resistance to that, and I think both pros hit the nail on the head saying you're just going to have to work around what that person presents if they're not willing to take a course of action to help improve how they move.
Where and thank you for that answer. Is there I guess a point in time? How do we as golf professionals? I mean, obviously there are some obvious situations, but if the individual has an underlying health issue or physical restriction that maybe, in the case of Pete talked about, went to a chiropractor, was able to resolve that. Is there a point in time, guys, that and this is both for Brandon and Pete, that we might have to step away? And I sort of asked this earlier, but is there a point in time if we believe that there could potentially be long-term ramifications of not seeking that help? How do you decide when you put the stop button on that instruction? Brandon and then Pete. Is there a point in time when you put the stop on it?
That's a hard question to answer. If they get hurt, if I've done everything I can do as an instructor to make sure that they are moving in a way that their body can support, and again, we've already established that may not always be ideal, but right. If I've done everything I can do to make sure that they are doing something that their body can support, and they come in injured, or they get hurt anyway, I'm stopping immediately.
Yes.
That would be the first hard stop for me. I guess another hard stop for me would be if they come to me and they say, okay, this is what I want to do, and we discuss, well, in order to be able to, to do this, we're going to have to do that because your body won't support that. And we have that conversation, and the thing that they continue to ask for, they will never be able to do. I'll go back to my hypothetical situation of the golfer with the dysfunctional trail shoulder. If that guy is, if he is dead set on playing a ball that starts right and moves left, his body cannot support that motion, then that's probably another hard stop for me. If I've had the conversation with them that, listen, you can't do this, we're not going to be able to pull this off, and they continue to be belligerent and argue, and demand, then I'm probably going to have to give them a hard stop. I'm not going to do that without explaining to them why, and here's why. Because if they are that type of person, and honestly, in 15 plus years of teaching golf, I've only run across that one time. But if they are that determined, they're going to go to somebody else who will give it to them. And before I let them do that, I've got to make sure they understand, if you do this, there is risk of injury. And that's why we're not going any further. And so, I think those are probably the two hard stops for me. I can't see a situation other than injury or, them just demanding something that I can't give them that would make me stop, other than those two.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, Brandon, and Pete, I'm going to jump to you in a little bit differently here. And the reason why, this is an important discussion to have here tonight on the Coach's Corner panel is, we have an aging population. There's a lot of golfers out there that get into that 50-plus category. And, Brett, the next topic I want to get into here in just a minute with you is the under 50. I know you don't primarily work with them, but I want to talk about some preventative things that the younger generation could do to avoid what Pete and I are going through now in our 50s. So, but before we do that, Pete, there's an aging population, that's baby boomers that are coming into this era, and obviously there's issues of obesity, of course, in some cases. There's all kinds of joint and muscle issues that have happened, and there's a sort of undertone, if you will, of people that have had frustration with their golf game that may not necessarily be from the instructional side, but it's because of the physical limitations. So how do we as an industry tackle that, that area, Pete, as we get more and more golfers moving into this next phase of their golf life? We don't want them to stop playing, but we want them to recognize that this is an important part, if you will, of their golf game as well. Besides just the instruction, they need to take this more seriously if they hope to play, well into their twilight years. Your thoughts on that, Pete, and then Brett, I'll get to your next question.
Well, I think, one of the things I always do is I'm always going to talk about cause and effect. And if I ask them a lot of times, what are you trying to do and what do you want the ball to do? And in most cases, I get a pretty good answer back. This is especially if I have a new player, and they'll talk for 10 minutes, and what they're trying to do has nothing to do with actually making the ball do what they want it to do. So we have to give them a little bit of understanding of, what's supposed to happen. What is club ball contact? What is going on? And you go from the ball to the club to the person and say, now these are the things that have to happen both with the club and with you if you want to make these types of shots. So I think if we can educate them a little bit more on the cause and effect of what happens, and then we can go back to their limitations and say, now, based on where you are, this is how we're going to have to approach this so that you can continue to play, continue to enjoy the game without getting any pain situations from where you are, unless we can get you some, physical help, send you to somebody like Brett who can, help in this area. If they're not going to do that, then I think a little bit of education on the cause and effect, and I think Brandon's answers on, the stop points were perfect. I was going to say ditto if you asked me right away. I used my ditto card on that, but I think I think we just have to educate them. And I think, to me, as an instructor, I've been doing this over 30 years. You know, I grew up a lot of my instruction with John Jacobs schools and with John himself. And there's no better cause and effect guy that I ever met than John Jacobs. And it was such a great training to have, because I can see exactly what all the causes are and the effects are and what's going to happen with the ball. And so you can work around all of that. If somebody doesn't have that knowledge, they're going to have a hard time trying to take somebody with limitations and get them to be able to produce a ball flight that's going to be effective for them to play. And I think it goes back to, you know, what we talked about before. You know, the player will go to somebody who they will give them what they want, and if they don't have that knowledge, then they're going to end up injured.
Yeah, well said. You know, I guess really what we want to be able to do as golf professionals is, obviously we want to be able to provide the best quality of instruction that we can to our students. And as we've said many, many times here on the panel before, I think all of us have reiterated this, there's also a part that the student has to play as well. They have to bring something to the table. You know, they're coming to us for basically to give them the tools necessary to achieve the best chances of success out in the golf course. But they have to bring something to the table as well, besides their checkbook. They need to be able to be willing and receptive, you know, to go down the path of, you know, seeking out some sort of a physical training regime to get themselves golf fit ready, if you will. And what I want to ask you, Brett, at this point, and guys, if you want to chime in afterwards, by all means, is, you know, we've talked about the 50-plus crowd and what's happened when they get into that. What can you suggest for the listeners out there, for those that are under 50, or maybe just starting out in golf, they're quite young, got a lot of flexibility. What should they be doing as a preventative maintenance, if you will, to avoid some of these issues? That obviously they're not going to avoid them altogether, but Brett, what can they do to sort of help with preventative maintenance, if you will, so that when they do hit, you know, 53, 54 here, as Pete and I are, they're going to be a little bit better off? What can you suggest that we can do, and what can we refer to some of our students that they consider adopting for some of the younger ones?
Right. So the younger golfers are going to have the following advantages over an older golfer. One is they're going to be naturally stronger and will have more muscle mass, typically, which will help with power. However, they may not be that flexible, mobile, and stable, those three qualities that we look at in depth in the level 1 screen. So I would encourage those younger golfers, if they're going to exercise, of course, I think the ideal program would be an organized golf fitness program, which is going to cover their specific needs rather than what they think they may need without having a screen or an assessment, is to spend less time lifting weights, which is what the younger guys want to do, especially machine-based programs. Any exercise done seated is completely dysfunctional as it relates to life and sport, especially golf. And if they want to maintain flexibility or gain flexibility and stability, if they're not going to take golf fitness program, is to participate in yoga on a regular basis. That would be the quick fix, to spend 1.5 to 3 hours a week in an organized yoga class to maintain muscle flexibility and joint mobility.
So more flexibility in a yoga type program would obviously be more conducive to a better golf game than a weight routine. Is that pretty much what you're saying?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing.
I think.
And I'm not talking lightweight. I'm not talking lightweights. I'm not talking lightweights. I'm talking, you know, as typically as especially young guys want to get into a little bit more. I won't say go as far as say bodybuilding, but get into a heavier witness. That's obviously not golf conducive, correct?
It's you could, the one exercise where it's encouraged to lift heavy is in a deadlift exercise, where you could use as much strength as possible in your lower body. But aside from that, once we look at strength as it relates to golf, we're not looking to get larger muscles. We're looking to have smarter muscles. So not that muscles have a brain. It's really training the nervous system to perform better. And you do that by making the exercises progressively more neurologically challenging, not necessarily by adding more load. So that's by changing position of the feet on the ground, changing position of the mechanism that you're moving, whether it's a cable machine or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, going from a bar to 2 dumbbells or 2 kettlebells where you have to balance each weight independently. And we just progress from there, which is basically making that person a better athlete. And we know that a better athlete has the potential to become a better player.
And typically, let me just add one other thing, and then I'm going to get the guys to jump in here real quick. What typically would you recommend that students or golfers invest as far as time? What would be the minimum, and what would be the maximum time that you would recommend if they want to get the best results that they invest on a weekly basis? What would be the minimum time that they should invest if they want to improve their golf game from a physical standpoint, and what would be the most time that beyond that they're not going to really reap benefits? What would you sort of the bottom and the top time frame, Brett?
The minimum amount of time, I think if you're going to cut it to a daily basis, you need to spend at least a half an hour on your body a day at a minimum. You could spend much more than that if you have the time available to you. Less than that, you're going to decline fairly rapidly after the age of 30. That's just the bottom line. If you're not paying attention to your body, you're going to notice it 20 years down the line. All of a sudden you hear things like, oh, I used to be able to do blank. Well, the reason why you can't do those things anymore is you haven't tried to maintain those abilities. Sure, we are going to decline naturally as we get older. It's just a result of aging. But if you exercise smartly, you could slow it down dramatically. And I can attest to that from personal experience.
Yeah, I'm with you. Brandon,
so I think,
Brandon, do you have...
Ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, please finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I think, for the listeners out there or anyone that's kind of on the fence about whether they should incorporate fitness into becoming a better golfer, the big question is just how much time are they willing to invest into becoming a better athlete, becoming a better golfer. We know that physical conditioning is part of that. All the pros are doing it. It's probably more important for the novice golfer, the amateur golfer, because they don't have those physical abilities that the pros typically do.
Very quickly, guys, Pete, I'm going to start with you, and then Brandon, do you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask while we've got him here of Brett, maybe for yourselves or even just something that you like to sort of keep in the back of your mind for the next time you're talking with some of your students that maybe some issues might come up? Is there any question that you have for Brett that maybe you can pick his brain, Pete, and then Brandon?
Well, I think, from a simple standpoint, I've got quite a few players, that are over 60. And so if you were looking from a fitness standpoint to something that would be easy enough for them to do that wouldn't be too taxing, I know you mentioned yoga, but is there anything else that they can do, just for their overall well-being, but also in relation to being able to perform better, with the golf swing?
Outside of using a CPI-certified instructor that's going to be able to test exactly what their needs are, I'm going to say no. I think there's a lot of people that default to Pilates because they feel like it works the core and it makes them longer, et cetera, et cetera. But my issue with that is if you don't transfer those physical abilities to a standing position, it will not carry over to function, especially in golf, because I've experienced that myself with a golfer who did Pilates and still does for quite a long time, and his body's completely dysfunctional as it relates to golf. So ultimately, you play sports on your feet unless you're rowing a boat. So if you can't balance on a single leg and you can't create those patterns of mobility and stability standing up, they're meaningless. So that's why I defer to yoga, as if you're not going to do everything else that's required, that's going to cover a lot of bases because it's going to force you to balance, to stabilize, to become more flexible, and to become more mobile all at once.
Right.
Perfect.
And I think yeah, and Brent, I'm going to give you a second here in just a moment, but I think just to sum that up a little bit, Brett, I think that it's not really the big muscles that I think most people have the issues. I think it's really the stabilizing muscles that a lot of people have issues with, because those are muscles that we don't really focus on for balance and things. And I think that most problems with our golfers, I'm pretty sure through a proper screening that you can find a lot of issues that our average golfers, especially as they get older, are within that stabilizing area. They don't have the same balance they once did. It's not that necessarily that the big muscles don't have sufficient strength. I think a lot of it is their stabilizing has sort of diminished as well. Brandon, is there something that you want to ask Brett while we've got him here, and then we're going to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, you can give me a quick answer. Talk to me about the importance cardiovascularly as it relates to golf.
Yeah, so in the level 2 screen that TPI has, we test for cardiovascular efficiency as well as strength and power. It is important for the golfer that wants to play more than one day in a row. I think most people could probably get away without training if they're going to play one day every now and again. But the golfers that I work with up here in New York that have a short season, they're playing every opportunity they get, and that over the summer, that could be 3 days in a row. So cardiovascular conditioning is essential because they're going to walk up to 8 miles on an undulating course carrying a bag 3 days in a row, and that doesn't include the rotational ballistic part of the swing. So it's really an essential part of your overall fitness program, unless you're going to sit in a cart, of course, and that's not going to make you fit.
Right. Yeah, and that's something, too. Let me just, I guess my question would be, since you mentioned it, would be this, Brett, and that is, for those, there's a lot of golf courses out there, of course, that are cart-friendly. In fact, most of them now, especially here down the southeast, a lot of them require a cart just for speed of play. What can golfers do while they're out in the golf course, maybe in between shots while they're waiting for their partner to hit, that maybe to get some of that stretching and mobility along the way, as opposed to just sitting their fanny in the golf cart for 18 holes? Is there something they can do as they're getting ready for without really holding things up or look like they're doing a ballet move out in the golf course?
You were asking me that, right?
Yes, I am, Brett.
Yeah. So yes, there are. There are some stretches that are rather simple to perform using the poles of a golf cart. And a colleague of mine down in Florida, she goes by the name of Fit Golfer Girl, has a nice little video on YouTube on how to do those stretches. I haven't shown those because my golfers walk, and I show a dynamic warm-up routine, which is done just using a golf club before you start playing. But you could access that on YouTube and just look up Fit Golfer Girl, and there's a couple of stretches for the lats, for the hips, for the chest. Very simple to do. Doesn't look like you're dancing out there.
Perfect. Well, guys, I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys for coming on Coach's Corner panel again. Very interesting discussion. This is I think an area that a lot of people, not so much in the business but outside of the business, really fail to focus on. I think that a lot of times, students come to us with maybe some behind-the-scene issues physically that maybe we don't always catch, and it's good to have somebody that focuses on the fitness side of things that can kind of point some of these things out to keep an eye for. And obviously, Pete and Brendan, I know that you've gone through the TPI program, so you're a little bit more aware than some of the other ones out there, but I think this is an area that unfortunately is going to get more and more prevalent as our golfing population ages more and more. So this is something that we need to sort of keep abreast of, if you will. And I want to thank you all for coming on the panel, and Brett, particularly thank you for a great discussion tonight. Very quickly, I'm going to go with Brandon, and then Pete, and then Brett. How can the folks, if they're interested in reaching out to you to learn more or get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that, Brandon?
Yeah, so everything I have is just my last name, Stooksbury, and then golf. That's the Twitter handle. Instagram feed, Facebook, webpage, YouTube. It's all under Stooksbury Golf. And so you can find out anything you need from there. Feel free to call or email or whatever questions or anything you might need.
Perfect. Pete, what about yourself?
Pretty much everything I have is under plainsimplegolf.com. It's PLANE, plainsimplegolf.com. All my contact info, all the programs that I do, everything's out there, so they can seek that out and find out what they need and contact me if necessary.
Perfect. And Brett, for those that maybe need a little bit more help with the fitness side of things, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, for me, everything is hosted on my website, which is nygolffitnessguru.com. There they could contact me through my telephone number, business email address. There are links to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and they're welcome to download wherever they live the free dynamic warm-up guide and keep it forever and use it. And there's a video clip right from the guide to YouTube, so they could go along with it anytime they want.
Perfect. Well, guys, again, thank you very much for joining me tonight on the Coach's Corner panel and for an interesting discussion on the fitness side. Excuse me, on the fitness side of things, and hopefully the listeners out there took away some useful information, which I'm sure they will. And keep up doing the great work, and I look forward to having you guys back again on a future panel. So, again, Brett, Pete, and Brandon, thanks again for your time as always, and I look forward to the next time.
Thanks, Ted. Always a pleasure. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Ted.
Good night,
all right,
guys.
thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Good night. See you guys.
All right, that was my very special guests on the Coach's Corner panel, Pete Buchanan, Brandon Stooksbury, and special guest panelist Brett Cohen. And as I said, we were talking about the fitness side again, topic 3, things that maybe some of the golf professionals that you might be working with don't know but should. We want to make sure that you guys are safe out there, regardless of what level of play you are, whether you're new to the game, whether you've been around for a little while and been playing golf the better part of your life. It's always important that you do so safely. And Brett Cohen, as I said, has been on the Coach's Corner panel and been a guest here over the last couple of years, actually, and has certainly offered some great advice for those of you that, maybe you want to improve your game. It's not just about ball striking or making solid contact with the golf ball all the time. It's also making sure that your body is functioning properly. And for those of you who haven't done so, again, some of the instructors out there may have certain certifications and things that can help you in that area, or at the very least can certainly guide you in that area. So, and direct you to somebody that is more qualified. But if you haven't done so, what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to move on with the program as I get ready for my next special guest this evening, is that you get a fitness screening done. Even if you've been playing golf for a while, it's always good periodically to have that done just to see what your limitations are. Maybe there's some things, Pete talked about, having to go to a chiropractor, that some mobility had been lost over the last few years. So he went to a chiropractor and was able to get some adjustments and has gained back a good portion of that mobility back. So for you golfers out there that may be struggling a little bit with your golf game and some of the flexibility, don't just strike it up to old age like the rest of us are doing here. Go seek out a golf fitness instructor or somebody that specializes in the fitness side of things, and make sure that they, prepare you properly, and make sure that there's somebody that specializes in golf fitness, because it is different than you don't want to just go to the gym and get connected with a fitness instructor that may not be able to address some of the issues and concerns that you may have out in the golf course, especially if they're not trained in that area. There's all kinds of different types of fitness instructors, so you want to make sure that he or she is within that golf wheelhouse. And as Brett also mentioned too, for those of you that maybe don't have a lot of time, maybe you're doing yoga. That's a great alternative as well, to at least get some benefit out there that's going to help stretch out the muscles and help with stability as well. So for those of you that maybe do a little yoga, kudos to you guys for doing so. As I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, my very special guest this evening is going to be Elisa Gaudet. She is was actually on the show Women of Golf with Cindy Miller and I earlier this week on Tuesday. In fact, she spent a little bit of time with us, but let me just tell you a little bit about her. She is the founder and president of Executive Golf International and also the founder of Women's Golf Day. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and a few other things. But let me just tell you a little bit more about her. She's has 16 plus years of golf industry experience in the U.S., Europe, and Latin America, including executing the 2002 EMC World Cup for the PGA Tour, headed up sponsorship, marketing, and PR for the Latin PGA Tour, and is very experienced in TV rights negotiations, sponsorship procurement and activation marketing, player relations benchmarking studies, and large-scale destination marketing as well. So it's very, very skilled in those areas. But we're also going to talk about tonight, and I didn't get a chance, obviously, on Tuesday just because of the time, but she's published, or authored rather, a number of books titling Two Good Rounds. First one, of course, 19th Hole Stories from the World's Greatest Golfers, based on some interviews with 36 of the top golfers in the world, discussing fun, feel, and good memories on and off the golf course. The other next in the series, of course, was Two Good Rounds Superstars, which encompasses golf stories from some of the world's greatest athletes, as well as Two Good Rounds Titans, leaders in industry and golf. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight as well as the Women's Golf Day. We're going to get her to give us a little bit of a recap. So without further ado, let me bring on my very special guest tonight, Elisa Gaudet. Elisa, welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
How are you doing,
How are you
Elisa?
guys doing?
I'm doing very well. Elisa, I've already gone through some of your many accolades. I thought I would do that before you came on so that we could get right into some discussion. So what I wanted to do, the reason why I wanted to have you on Golf Talk Live as well as earlier in the week with Cindy and I on the Women of Golf was obviously a little bit crossover of audiences, mainly on Tuesday. Of course, we do get some men listening to that, but it's primarily our female audience that tunes in Tuesday mornings. And obviously Thursday evenings is a little bit of both, but a lot of men tuning in tonight as well. And I want to talk about, we're going to do a recap of the Women's Golf Day. You can talk a little bit about that and sort of refresh for those that maybe listened to Tuesday, and for those that didn't hear the Tuesday broadcast, talk a little bit about the Women's Golf Day and how that came about. And then I also want to spend a little bit of time tonight to talk about the books that you authored as well, which I just read them out here just briefly a moment ago. So let's start with the obvious, sort of how you got involved in the golf industry, why you got involved, and how you came up with the idea of a Women's Golf Day.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm always... I like to say thanks for, having a platform to share our story. I mean, that's how people get to find out about it. So I guess start with how I got in the golf industry. I have been in the golf industry for now 17 years. I started, I worked in Latin America. I worked based out of Miami, but for Metro Golden Mayer, and there I met some people from the TLA, Tour de las Americas, so the Latin PGA Tour for sake of ease. And when I was in Argentina in 2000, I met one great gentleman, Ross Berlin from the PGA Tour, and he called me in, and he and Mike Bodney from PGA Tour Championship Management hired me to go work on the EMC World Cup in 2002 in Mexico. So I lived there for about 18 months to execute that event with another guy. Just the two of us, until it gets to the end. So it was an incredible experience. I'm so grateful to have, you always say what happens in life. I never really had a mentor, but it's kind of crazy that you meet somebody on a plane. And but everybody was coming back. It was pretty golf people from the Argentine World Cup. And so I did run that 2002. I call that my masters in golf because, as I say, I did everything from TV rights to tablecloths, literally. Negotiated because it was out of the package and everything else. It's not part of like a CBS or NBC because it was in a different country. So it was a phenomenal experience. I love the tour. And from there, when I got back, I really didn't want to move around, which is kind of the track that you end up doing if you get involved in tournaments. So
Right.
I started Executive Golf International because what I noticed was that companies were having a little bit of difficulty. Golf is very different than the NBA, NFL, MLB, in that it's not just TV sponsorship and you stick some billboards on the side, and they're also teams. These are
Right.
individuals. So I think a lot of corporations were having difficulty, and it's not the PGA's Tour's job to hold their hand and say, hey, you could do this or do that. And mainly, to cut to the chase, is activation. They were not able to activate.
Yep.
So, when I have these words on my website of Executive Golf International: strategy, synergy, activation, and they may sound cliche, but it's really not, because every single company, even the ones that are doing it well, I can go to the mattresses saying that, I know that there's probably one area where they're weak. So
Right.
it's that, they may have a strategy, but there's no synergy between, okay, we're doing this and this and this, and then whether it's, a major corporation, but they're not strategically aligning the different regions or offices or employees, down to that level, to or activating. They buy a membership and they don't know how to activate. If you're getting a hospitality tent, you better be writing business. You invite your cousin and your friends, you're not going to make any money. It's not going to be worth
Right.
it. And they turn around and say, hey, it wasn't worth it. That's the interesting part. So I have been doing that since 2003, and just myriad of all kinds of different, the government of the Dominican Republic. I'm a small firm, so we are lean and mean, and I have a bunch of people that have been with me for years, and they're wonderful. So, and that's what we do. And that's, and then I took a break. The crash happened in 08, 09, and that's when I wrote the books.
Right.
So I always had this idea. I didn't go out saying, hey, I'm going to write 3 books. I wrote one. I did it with a publisher, Skyhorse, and the one turned into 2, turned into 3. At 3, you're a series. So we had these ideas of, I always saw these articles in, whether it was Digest or magazine or overseas, of really interesting stories of maybe it was an athlete or a CEO that played golf. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if they were all in one place? So you could go thumb through and see, let me compare like Ray Allen compared to, to a bullfighter in Spain or, to an NFL player, So that's what that is. That's it's a kind of formula. It's fun, feel good. Everybody gets a few, a couple pages, and that's the books.
Well, and I think it also. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit more in a few moments. But I think obviously what's interesting about the books is that it gives people sort of an inside look to maybe some of their favorite golfers, because obviously your first one was about golfers in golf itself, and then you sort of gravitated to other areas of sports, athletes and that, and then you sort of wrapped it up with some of the leaders. The leaders in business industry and sort of how they've gravitated to golf and why and that sort of thing. So you got a great broad spectrum in that. But I want to ask you something, because you mentioned something a few moments ago about a lot of organizations and that don't always hit all 3 of what you talked about, the strategy and that sort of thing. Is this something that I think do you think partially because there's been such a divergence between the leaders of industry and some of the workers in the companies that there's not a communication? Because if we're going to be honest, let's look at it this way. The leaders are not the frontline people in any corporation. It's the working class, if you will, that the front. Like if you use a bank as an example, it's the tellers, it's the people that are writing the loans and things that are working with people. Do you think that there's been a disconnect, and is this why you've sort of fallen into this ability to be able to help a lot of these companies maximize these benefits that you're talking about?
I don't think it's a disconnect. I think there's something to be said with, the top level, the C-level is going to say, hey, we like golf, we're going to get involved, and we know this is our target market, which people do. So that's the no-brainer. That's why you get finance banks, because it is a more, there's a target market. It's a more affluent group, so that makes sense. The disconnect is that Mercedes' job is to make Mercedes. They're not in the golf industry. And just like if I try to go out and build a car, It's the exact same thing. I mean, I think it's a little more difficult than people think, or there's more nuances.
Right.
So what they end up with is, a basic Camry instead of because they don't know the industry, They don't know what they can and can't do and stuff like that. That's what I think it's more. It's not, and people try to do the best they can, but they don't know what their options are. They don't know.
Right.
Should they be getting more? They have to look internally. And then when I sit down with a company, Mercedes has not been a client, but it's an easy example to point to. So is it better for you to spend $5 million, and these are fake numbers, and put your logo on some person's bag, or spend $5 million and be the title sponsor and you have hospitality and everything? Or is it better to spend $5 million and do a dealer incentive program where all your dealers play golf and everybody meets in Stuttgart, at the end of the year, which has absolutely nothing to do with any tour players or anything? That depends on, do you need branding awareness? Do you need engaging with clients? Or do you need internal rah-rah, So each one of those, as you can see, would be addressing what it is that the company needs. And at the end of the day, I always remind them is like, you tell me what you want to do. Like, we want to be in golf, and it could be a lawyer, or a doctor, or anybody, or companies. And I'm like, no, you don't. You want to sell more Mercedes. So let me help you sell more Mercedes through golf. But then you get them to dial down. We want to sell more XL 5000s. Okay, now we're talking. Now how do we back into that? And that's how I feel to be the most effective for any client. And right now I have a client in Waterville in Ireland, and they're just, did a big capital investment to their clubhouse and everything. And it's, time for them to refresh and, let people know that they're, number one in Ireland, not Northern Ireland, because Royal County Down and Royal Portrush always come up above, but in the Republic of Ireland, so stuff like that. What do you want? You want members? You want this? You want that? And that's just really just, making sure that people are thinking. They get excited, especially at the C level. They want to get involved. They're like the rah-rah, but you got to make sure that, like you said, your team, everybody can activate, and you know what the plan is.
Right. Well said. Now, you've started, we're going to talk about, obviously, the Women's Golf Day, but you've obviously had the opportunity in your career and in your life to do a lot of travel, not just throughout the United States and obviously into South America, but you've had the opportunities to travel to Europe and other areas in that in your journey. What were some of the things, obviously, the U.S. is a huge golf market, probably the largest golf market in the world. Europe, of course, following, and then now you've got in some of the Asian areas like Korea and so forth that are coming through. But what was some of the dialogue that you had in preparation for setting up the Women's Golf Day? Obviously, you started in one area, but it's broadcast literally all over the globe. We'll talk about that and give us maybe some numbers. But what was some of the dialogue that you had with some of the different areas and why you felt it was important to initiate this particular event?
Right. So the event first started, for those who don't know, it's a one-day, 4-hour experience for women and girls. And first 2 hours is you either take 2 hours of lessons or you play 9 holes. And then there's a hard stop, and then there's 2 hours of socializing. So, anything that anybody was to try for the first time, usually you don't have experienced people mingling with new people that are trying something. So that's, we realized, was the game changer, that there was a comfortability, and all the points the data points that said women are, apt to try, but then are quick to leave because they don't feel comfortable and everything. So I did take a look at that data, and as you now just know, this is what I do for a living. So this is, a strategy. So I took the data points and like, how can we address these? And we did. Made it comfortable, it's 4 hours. It's only 2 of real golf stuff, and even if you're taking lessons, it's 45 minutes on the driving range, 45 minutes chipping and putting, and the pro's not sitting with you exclusively. So it's very easy breezy. I went to the management companies, and to the CEO, so Dana Garmany at Troon and Eric over at Club Corp and, the Billy Casper folks, and really said to them, the reason why I'm doing it, while I would love to, I'm not the USGA and I'm not the, PGA of America. Our job is not to grow the game. We want to do it. What I saw was that NBA, NFL, MLB, I go to all these conferences throughout the year, sports, not just golf. And they're seeing women as economic influencers, and we are missing the boat. And just a light bulb went off, and I said, this is really how we're missing the boat in this industry, because they're seeing women as economic influencers. Like, if you notice some of the commercials for the NFL, it's a woman's voice, and she's like, I bought my son a Bengals shirt, my daughter-in-law Patriots, and blah, blah, blah. That they're obviously the ones that are consuming and buying. And that's just, even if it is a $40, $50 shirt. Our industry, a majority of the revenue generated from our industry is homes on a golf course, memberships at a country club, or golf vacations. Those are high-ticket numbers, far higher than tee times. So that's where seeing women as economic influencers becomes extremely important. And if one more person would say to me at our, industry golf conferences, oh my gosh, we got to get millennials. How come we don't have millennials? I literally was like ready to jump out of my chair and strangle somebody. So when I give a presentation, I usually start by saying, hi, and it is mostly men, but hi everybody. I assume you all know where babies come from. Everybody gets a chuckle.
Right.
So the millennials don't pop out as millennials. So before they became a millennial, somebody would have taken them to the golf course. Somebody would have to drive them. So whether it's tap, jazz, ballet, baseball, soccer, and that's where we miss the boat too. I mean, it's really not like, if you didn't want to push golf down women's throats, you really need to see them as a gateway to the revenue for big purchase items that are important. Those are family decisions, and for getting the youth involved, no matter what the sex. And so that's how Women's Golf Day was kind of, and the management companies got it big time. They got behind it, and then that was year one. Year two, we this past year, I spent the entire year reaching out to all the major organizations. So, PGA of America, the National Golf Course Owners, European Golf Course Owners. I spent a good 3 months in Europe. I also went to, for this and other business, but to circle back to one of your questions is Dubai. I had never been to Dubai, and I was blown away with how modern, how they've embraced golf, how many golf courses, the quality.
Right.
Run by a lot of expats there and what have you, but I wanted to also, with all the craziness that's going on, I mean, I think that people have really also, we've touched a nerve in that it's not just, hey, let's all go out and play golf and it's just for women. We have created community, and I think with all the craziness going on in the world, it's one day and everybody just gets together for one singular purpose, and it's very peaceful and happy and joyous, and it doesn't matter what religion you are, what color you are, what language you speak, or religion you practice. So I'm ridiculously proud of our four Muslim countries that were part of this with no glitch. In the entire 704 locations in 46 countries, we had 4 more countries than the Olympics had. And that was the Olympics that was just held the first time since 1904. So I'm beyond proud of our team and everybody that worked on this. And in 2 years, for all the years we've been in the golf industry, I in everything I've ever done, even with the World Cup and everything, I am just, this is like a child, and I'm happy. If I got hit by a bus, God forbid, I left a nice fingerprint. I hope it goes on, and we're just seeing lots of ways that it's growing. Mostly, like I said, community, women connecting with one another. It's a message of getting together, and this is fun, and this is nice, and get your families involved, and it's kind of, I think people want that. We love technology, but I think there's going to be a pushback, and we're going to see people want to have human interaction.
Yeah, I agree, and I think people are starting to recognize now. Obviously, there's a lot of advantages that we've seen over the last decade or so with technology and that, both in and out of the golf industry. But I think people within the golf industry are starting to recognize that that this big push for technology, albeit was the folks I think had the right idea, but they got too dependent on it and actually confused a lot of the average golfers out there with all this, these phrases and buzzwords and things like that it actually worked against the industry a little bit. I wanted to ask you something, just kind of what we've been talking about here about Women's Golf Day and that. I was at the PGA show. I didn't go this past year, but I went the previous year. And one of the things that I noticed about that's still lacking in the golf industry, even though there's a lot of women in the golf industry, there doesn't seem to be as much of a concerted effort to really bring in more women entrepreneurs as there should be. I mean, as you said, you said Tuesday with Cindy and I, women really are the driving force in the economy when it comes to making purchases and making household decisions and things like that. And yet in the golf industry, all of the advertising and marketing seems to be geared at the guys. What in your opinion should the industry do if they really want to make women feel as part of the group? What changes would you like to see the PGA or of America and other governing bodies within the golf industry do in order to be more embracing for women?
Well, I think, we did it. I did it. As one of them, there's a change that we wanted to see happen. And, if you want to see the change, be the change in the world. And that's the number one thing is for women themselves within those organizations to kind of push forward. And that's what I think is the best advice I would give. I don't have a secret, either we got lucky or I've been paying attention a little or we've got, I also think, and one thing I'm very cautious to is I love guys. Don't get me wrong. This is not a male bashing, whatever.
No,
it's
of course
just
not.
The reality of the situation is it's at 87%. Will that change? Yes. There's lots of young junior golfers and girls that are really embracing golf. So it's going to just take time. It takes generations. So I think that women within their own just moving up as you get, just like it mirrors corporate America, or any other industry, as you get more women in the C-level or in management positions, if we're asked our opinion, we're going to be able to tell. The irony is not lost that obviously coming up with something, a woman might have a better idea how to market to women than a couple of older gentlemen, So maybe that's why this was successful. You know what I'm saying? I think it takes that. So if they get into senior management or what have you, you see more and more of that starts happening.
Yeah, because, in all honesty,
I got 4 guys that went to bat, and one is Steve Mona from the World Golf Foundation. When you're a first year anything, especially in our industry, and it's not technology and hot and cool and everything, these people, that's like sticking your neck out big time.
Right.
And he got behind it with the World Golf Foundation, which is a consortium of all of the organizations. So that was huge. So then next came Mark Gore from Club Corp, the CMO, came on with 160 properties straight off the bat, no negotiation. And they are allowed, they are able to do that because they own their own properties, whereas the other ones are managed, whether it's Troon or Billy Casper or some of the others, American Golf, what have you. So that was huge. That's number 2. Number 3, David McLaren from the European Tour. He also runs European Tour properties and the senior tour there. His daughter just started playing on the LET. He has 2 daughters, very successful. He's felt their pain. He's watched it working for the European Tour. The irony was not lost on him, what they have to do to just be on tour and play, and there's no financing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he got behind it, and he got the European Tour properties on board. And then the 4th is, all these people came on between the first and second year, except for Steve Mona came on the first year. Anthony Scanlon, the head of the International Golf Federation, which oversees all of the golf federations around the world. So now when I tell you the strategy, or at least the people that I sought out to help champion this, it takes a village. This isn't, I may have thought of the strategy and put a team together, but it takes these people to step up and execute and do it. And these guys did. And it's unfortunate that you weren't able. I know we'll have another one because it was stand up, sold out, whatever you want to call it. We had a press conference at the PGA show, and it was standing room. We couldn't believe it because we just put it out there. We didn't ask people to RSVP. But I had those 4 gentlemen I just mentioned, and I moderated.
Yep.
So gratefully they all happened and were able to come and be there and participate. And I did have somebody say, like, oh, why aren't there more women? Can't look at it that way. It's changing. I'm a woman.
Yep.
I was there. So, and,
right.
1-to-4 ratio, that's pretty darn good. It's probably better than what we have right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's
agree.
indicative of what the industry is also, 1-to-4 players as women. When everybody look at, we're showing look at how far we've come. Don't say why is there not. We're doing it. So I think I'm really trying to keep the team and everybody focused on the positive, because what we've done is unfathomable in 2 years. By the way, everybody volunteers. There's no money behind this. My company put the money up.
Right.
So that's even crazier.
Yeah.
When you think about it, the USGA could have done this. Anybody, we did this with everybody volunteering and my company putting up all the money that we needed for, the web development, the website. That guy gets paid. Nate, who does a phenomenal job.
Right.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And you're exactly right. And I think that was a great approach to take. I mean, obviously, as time moves on, you're going to be looking at other sponsorships and things like that to help come in and share some of the load. But that's a smart way to do it, because a lot of great projects like this that get initiated, sometimes if they focus too much on the money aspect and not on the actual cause or at the event or what have you, then a lot of times it doesn't get its full due, if you will, because they're focusing too much on the dollars and cents. So it was good that you sort of took the bull by the horns and said, okay, we're going to shoulder the load financially. We want to get this thing started, and then at some point down the road, obviously, as you mentioned on Tuesday, you're going to be looking at
that point in the road.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, and that's understandable. But you went about it the right way.
Right. We put the passion first. We put the passion and the integrity of the thing, because it did start as a passion project. I didn't sit there and go, how can I make money? It really was like, man, I'm so frustrated, and there's got to be something easy. And I make it abundantly clear that we don't compete with anybody. We are a one-day, one-off. And I've heard people, they counter that like, oh, well, why does anybody want to get involved? It's just a one-day thing, whether it's sponsors or what have you. And I said, you know what? So is the New York Marathon. And look how well they're doing.
That's right.
So
right,
we are like the New York Marathon inverted. Instead of everybody coming to us, we go to them for that one day.
Right, and you've done well. And just I know that these are a little bit rough numbers, but just to give an idea, because I know I was certainly impressed, as was Cindy on Tuesday. The participation, I mean, you talked about the venues. It was over 700 in 46 or 48 countries, but just ballpark, what was some of the hard numbers, if you will, of participants this past June? Yeah,
it's harder for us to nail that number down.
Sure.
The hard numbers that we know factually, you can even go to the map and see it, is the 704 locations in 46 countries. A conservative number would be 50,000 for this year, and it was 20,000 last year.
Yeah, and so I think you mentioned
conservative numbers.
60. Right, it was a 60-some-odd% increase from the previous year. So obviously, that's a substantial number in itself to focus on. No, I think what you're doing, Elisa, is fantastic. I've said for a long, long time, and this was the one thing I never liked about the golf industry, is that it was always very inclusive. And for generations, it's been a male-dominated sport. Obviously, the women of the LPGA, some of the founders of the LPGA, the few that are still with us, did a lot of hard work and legwork, if you will, to get where they are today with the LPGA. But there's still, this industry is still very slow to move, and I think what you're doing is helping to make aware to a lot of women, and particularly young girls out there, that there's a place in this industry for them if they choose, whatever it may be. They can be teachers, they could be players, they could just be business people that maybe use golf as a tool or vessel in order to help their own company that they're working for, or their own business that they're developing. So there's a lot of different options, and it's a great social thing as well for women. So you're really opening the door by featuring this event, and it may only be one day, but that's all it takes, is just one day to put a spark in somebody.
It does, and you know what? Even though it is one day, we have a monthly newsletter. We have created a membership. So that offers, throughout the year, and we're just helping to point people. Once again, we're not competing. We're not going to do LPGA scores or anything like that. There's too many people. If anything, we're partnering more and more. We had phenomenal support from Golf Channel, and I know that they're going to probably do even more so next year per my conversations. But they spent the whole day. They did a lot of coverage. We had that week fell on the tournament that's in Memphis, the St. Jude Classic, and they got involved. So even on the men's PGA Tour that Tuesday, because it's a good thing is we're Tuesday, we're not competing with anybody, we're highlighting. They also, participated, like I said, and they have an executive women's day, and they had, talk about connecting all the dots, and it's somebody on our team who thought of this, Cynthia Howard, who works for the PGA Tour. She's on our WGD team. Was that the girls from the first tee came over and taught classes, just little putting and stuff like that, to the women that were attending the Executive Women's Day, which is something they always host out of the PGA Tour hosts on a Tuesday. So you got 3 different organizations. Women, they did it as Women's Golf Day as well. The long drive fell on that day, and we have another woman that's on our team, Lisa Longball. She was competing on that day. So we either get dumb lucky or I don't know what, but we have a lot of good, and thanks to the PGA Tour, which of all the organizations has the least, impetus to what's in it for them kind of thing. Compared to all the other governing bodies. But, even the RNA knows about it. And like I said, you're talking about traveling. You're right. I do travel extensively, and I'm leaving tomorrow for Ireland, and I'll be in Europe for the next 2 months. So, it's, how we, I think, got to spread it around, and, thanks to some of these great people.
Well, and I think what I like, really about the event in itself, Elisa, is the fact that, there are a lot of EWGA, there's a lot of great women's organizations out there that focus around golf, that have great memberships, very large memberships. But for somebody that's never really been exposed to the game, and maybe as a newcomer, that can be a little bit daunting. They don't want to necessarily jump into an organization because they you know what I mean? So this gives them an opportunity to kind of get their feet, or, dip their toe in the water, if you will, to say, okay, am I going to even like golf? Why don't I just go out, participate? I don't even have to play golf. I can just get some great lessons, or spend a little bit of time just learning about the game, and then gives me an opportunity to socialize with other people, like-minded people that have a similar interest. And then the world is their oyster, if you will, from that point on. So I like the approach, and what it's done is it's just sort of planting that seed, if you will, for women and young girls particularly. And then where they go from there is obviously entirely up to them. And I think this is something really that the golf industry has needed for a long time, and I think it's a fantastic event that you're doing, and this is why I think it's taken off as well as it has. And kudos to you for coming up with the idea. Yeah,
thanks. Like I said too, we really do. That's one of the things I with our team and with the locations and everything. And I think, keep expounding on, whether it's the website or our messaging, is it's okay if you just want to play, one time a year, twice a year, just for your corporate outings. It really got it was like an all or nothing. You either learn to play and you play 18 and you play all the time, or you're not a golfer. That's baloney. And it's because you better be looking, because those women, it's more important to have them play once a year. If they want to play 9 and wine 3 times a year, or be part of their country club, it's better, because they're the ones that are going to bring the kids. If we keep turning them off, we're the only industry, I've said this at these sports conferences, we're the only industry that has negative connotation, sports widow or golf widow. Why isn't there a soccer widow?
Yep.
And there's a soccer mom. All she's doing is driving them. She's not playing soccer 3 times a week.
Right.
So why isn't there a golf mom, that drives to? I mean, you think about it. It's so ridiculous. Golf widow. Yeah,
that's a great point. And also another thing too that I've noticed, and again, I know things are starting to change. Golf courses, particularly as you pointed out earlier, with the recession that hit a few years back, a lot of golf courses, some didn't survive, and others have struggled to survive over the last 7-8 years. One of the things that they're really missing the boat on is, now some of them certainly have reached out and have some great LPGA professionals in there and that, but really, for the pro shops to really compete, they need to be more women-friendly and more inviting for women to want to come in there, because they're still a little bit stodgy in some cases. You know, you walk into some of the pro shops, and it's a very male-dominated theme, and, you know, they're really missing the boat, not letting some of these ladies, especially when they've got a lot of, you know, female membership, and they're not really, you know, focusing much on them. So they really need to change their business model, I think, to be more inclusive and not just sort of go down the same path. And I think this is where you're going to see, as you pointed out earlier, you know, a lot of women, you know, women have a tremendous amount of buying power in the world, and they need to, I think, spend more time focusing on that and addressing that more efficiently. Would you agree with that, do you think?
Yeah, I do, but, you know, I think it's, you know, unfortunately, I don't know what people read and what they do. And this is, once again, goes back to our original conversation of, you know, Mercedes, his job is to sell Mercedes. I don't know if the Golf Pro, I mean, and most of these guys, we were warned. That's why ours is super turnkey. They get a toolbox with all the marketing materials and everything else, because I know that they're tapped out. So I don't want to, like, poo-poo all over them. If they're not reading some type of statistical data, which I happen to be a nerd, and I love that stuff. Like, I eat that up, these data studies. I mean, I'm like, yay. You know, I mean, it's completely nerdy, and I love it. I don't know why, but I do. So I read all of those. But if you don't look at the general population and what women are spending and what they're responsible for, and when like I told you, you know, because I do speak at occasionally or what have you at events and things, and when I sit in that room, and it is, like I said, largely all men, and it's in golf or whatever, you ask them, who does the spending in your household? They're not tell them, ask them. Who's booking the vacation? I know this data already. Like, unless the data is lying, something like 94% of all vacations are planned by the female in a household.
Sure, and that's exactly right. And this goes to what I was talking about earlier. You know, when you go down to the PGA merchandising show, I mean, it's a very, you know, great show and very interesting show. But at the same time, you know, they need to really think about the marketplace a little bit differently. And I'll give you a good example. If you look at the average purchases for men in golf, I mean, most men might buy a pair of golf shoes once every few years. I remember my own sister, when she first got into golf, she had multiple pairs of golf shoes, multiple outfits, and that was when she first took up the game. And obviously it has expanded and you know, over time. But, you know, so when you look at even from that standpoint there, I mean, they're missing a huge opportunity, I think, in my opinion, by not really going aggressively after the women's market, because women are going to buy, I think, more aggressively than the men would. So, you know, that's why I was saying,
you got to follow the data, though, because I wouldn't say aggressively. I just think they should focus and look at it strategically, because you may say that, but once again, if they're coming in and then they're leaving, the long-term plays with the guy. So they may come in and get all excited and they buy the stuff, but then they're leaving the game, which is what the data has shown.
Right.
So then that's not a good investment for that pro to have invested in that, because they're not really sticking around. So I think cautiously doing it, because until, you know, it's like it's a very much a chicken and egg puzzle. So if they're coming in but then they're leaving, you got a one-shot wonder where you know the guy is going to consistently come in and he's going to buy. And if you look at it's very difficult for these guys, and I really wouldn't, you know, it's all coming down to everybody. I try to be very cautious without, like we all say, without knowing and really delving in. I'm just so entrenched in this through my clients right now that has nothing to do with Women's Golf Day, is that if the margins aren't there, the guy's not going to carry it in the store. Right, so what's happened is the Amazons and the, you know, Golfsmith's gone, but PGA Tour Superstores, it's tough to compete with bulk, just like Walmart. So the stuff that they're going to carry are the stuff, and I've had this conversation because I can tell you, you know, it's with a wonderful thing, and I'm so grateful, is that every twist and turn where I was like, oh no, you know, this economy, nobody wants wants any consulting services at this time, and then I get into writing the books. Well, the tables got turned, and now I'm the guy trying to get my stuff into a pro shop and a green grass And so and a PGA Tour Superstore and a Golfsmith. So I don't say this like this is data. This is me actually doing it. So I have compassion because if the margins aren't there, they're not going to do it. At the end of the day, it's a business. So you can say, wouldn't it be nice to have more? You got to look at why the guy is doing it. What they're really selling is, and they've told me they have to just sell the stuff that they know people are going to need when they show up. So it's becoming more and more. You see it. The golf balls, the glove, the stuff that you forgot to get or you didn't have, that. But the big ticket items, a set of clubs or whatever, they're not. There's no margins, and they're going to other places where it's less expensive.
Right. Well, sure. Yeah, people aren't buying. I mean, most people aren't buying golf clubs at a pro shop anymore because it's just they're overpriced. I mean, the truth of the matter is there's too many other discount areas, stores, and outlets out there that competing. I think really that the underlying thing that the industry needs to focus on is what you pointed out, which is you're exactly right, is that why are women leaving quickly? That's a question I think that they need to get the answer to and say, okay, there's a lot of women getting into golf, but they're as quickly or even quicker leaving the game. So that's a question I think that they need to address first, and then I think the others will follow suit. Elisa, I want to just take the last few moments because I can't believe how fast this time is going, but just to talk a little bit about your books. Let's talk about obviously the first one here. You had an opportunity to write about some some of the greatest golfers. That maybe just name one or two that were in the book, and then obviously we want people to get a copy of the book and delve into more, and then maybe just touch on each of the books a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That'd be great. So first of all, I think the fun thing to know is that the series, they're all called Two Good Rounds. So if anybody wants to get them, Amazon is probably the best place. I think the sports one might be sold out. You might be able to get it on there. I'm not sure. It was sold out. Two Good Rounds is a play on a round of golf and a round of drinks. And the logo, as if people Google it or whatever, will see it's a martini glass with two golf clubs. So the thought was, and there's no crazy stories or anything, but what you're hearing and the questions I'm asking are all the conversations that we all have when we go to the 19th hole. You start striking up like, Rayon, how does this compare to basketball or something you want to know when you're doing that. So the first one, as I mentioned, is 36 of the top golfers in the world, male and female. So, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but I have Jack, Arnold, Gary, I have Keegan, I have Kuchar. So young, old, international, everybody's got their country flag, and they tell me their favorite drink. That's all three books. That's the one thing that they do tell me is what's their favorite drink. And they don't have to drink. Some people have, lemonade, Nancy Lopez's milk. This isn't like raunchy stories when you were under the table. It was more, what are the moments you remember post, and some people, Ian Baker Finch is fun. He won the British, which is very timely right now. He won the British Open or the Open, and he filled the claret jug with red Australian wine and started from 18 with his coach and his wife, and they walked to the green, and the security guard came out and was like flashing and like getting ready to toss him off, and then realized who and what it was. So those are wouldn't you want to like? I'm like, and I haven't been in the industry, had heard a bunch of these stories, and I just thought like everybody would love to know these. I think just guys or girls or people that play, even if you don't, it was like kind of fun, to hear these stories that maybe you didn't know that happened or he did that. Because these are things you kind of like hear when you're at events and parties, and you get to, because having worked at the tour, I've been blessed to go to the Masters like 13 times, and you go to the events and things, and you meet the people and you know them now after the years. So that's what that is. Obviously, Mr. Palmer just passed away, so I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to meet him a number of times and what have you. That's the first one. The second one is the athletes, and that I went out of my way to also make sure that it was representative of more than our U.S. So I do have cricket and NASCAR and Formula One. I have like one of the top bullfighters in the world who actually caddied for Jimenez at the Masters.
Oh, wow.
And he's almost every single person in my book, almost everybody, I'm not sure about Charles Barkley, but everybody is a single-digit handicap, which is another thing. So I think when you go through there and you see, Ray, I keep saying Ray because he's bar none my favorite. He's a scratch golfer. There's probably not a nicer guy on the planet. And I think you get to compare him. Kelly Slater, he's another guy, doesn't drink. Bodie Miller, skier. So I got a lot of different sports and really well represented. Dale Jarrett, Jerry Bailey, horse jockey. So I felt like if there's any sport that you ever liked at all, even Olympians, somebody's got to connect with somehow. Even if you don't like golf that much, you would definitely. There's an athlete in there. You're like, oh, God, well, I really like, Jeremy Roenick, who bought a golf course in his town that went into insolvency and brought it back to life in Massachusetts. I love that story. Him and his dad, and I think his dad runs it. So how would you know that? Like, this is what this book is. And they're all format, the same thing. Everybody has a couple pages, and these are kind of the stories. And then the last one is, I know you said it's business people, but it's even more interesting than that. It's not just business people. It's 33 CEOs that own their own golf course. Not with a membership.
Oh, wow.
They own it outright. That's right. I was like, okay, these are like the big dogs of the,
Sure.
You've got enough disposable income that you're just going to build your own golf course. So we're talking about Herb Kohler, Mike Kaiser, he's escaping me from Reebok, that owns Liberty National. Paul Fireman, that was with Reebok. These people own those golf courses themselves. A lot of them are private or what have you. And Mike Kaiser, everybody knows, right? Bandon Dunes, you've heard of it.
Yep.
Does anybody know how he made his money? Do you know how he made his money?
No.
He's the guy that started recycled greeting cards.
Oh, really? Wow.
Would you have ever guessed that?
No.
In a million years,
Wow.
I would have never said, hey, this is how the guy made his money. He's the guy who started recycled greeting cards. And there used to be this, famous Burton and other, I know I'm dating myself here because nobody uses greeting cards anymore, really. But so this is also what you learn, how they made their money, and what they, how they made their money and what they, what prompted them to want to buy a golf course or get in the golf industry effectively, even if it's very actively, as Mike, even Greenbrier is another one. There's plenty of them, and from around the world as well. I'm big on the, as you know, global aspect, which I'm very excited because I'm hopefully going to get to meet, because we did the interview because through a translator and everything, is Hans-Peter Porsche. So from the Porsche family. And I will be in 2 weeks in Hamburg for the Porsche Open, a European Tour event, which I've never been to. And I'm very hopeful that I get to meet. I'm going to try to track him down, see if he's there, if he is. I owned an 87 911 for 20 years. It was my only car, and I got it a little later in life. So, yeah, I am a huge fanatic. So stuff like that. So that's that last book, and that to me was very interesting. Women in business. Sheila Johnson is one that's in there. She's a woman. She's was co-owner with her husband of BET Network, and sold that. And she owns, Reunion and a number of courses and hotels and things. And she owns a couple of courses, but I searched out women too, which is a little bit harder. The Remax, husband and wife, they own a golf course. So, that's the 3 books. And like I said, and everybody I do always ask them, what's your favorite drink? They got to tell me. That's part of the gig.
Well, excuse me. What's interesting about that too is this really gives people a very interesting perspective from all genres and all areas of not just business but golf and the athletic world, and just goes to show you that how big golf is, really how big golf is, not just internationally, but with, crossing over. You look at so many of the major league baseball players and hockey players and things like that at some point throughout their lives, if not as a youngster, but later maybe in their careers, all sort of gravitate. So it just shows you the power of golf. And that sort of brings them all together. And even some of the best athletes in the world will tell you that they were more frustrated out in the golf course than they ever were in an event or a game that they might have, even a World Series game. I've listened to interviews where people that played in World Series said that they had more frustration out in the golf course than they ever did in a World Series. So, it just goes to show you that it's a great equalizer in many, many ways. Elisa, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you again. I enjoyed our time on Tuesday with Cindy and I, and as I said, I wanted to have you on tonight here just to spend a little bit more time. And I think it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, and kudos to you. And please, keep me updated
and guys,
with
please,
what's
I know
going on.
you keep saying guys, but it takes the guys to tell their daughters, wives, mothers, aunts, coworkers. So womensgolfday.com. Guys can share it. We had a lot of guys that did do it.
Right.
They're part of the quotient too.
So what's the date? I know they can go and get it off the website. What's the date for 2018? June what?
June 5th, Tuesday. It's always like the first Tuesday in June. Yep.
Right. So go to womensdaygolf.com
No, Women's Golf
for
Day.
more information. Womensgolfday.com. My apologies. Womensgolfday.com to find more information about that. Maybe if you're interested, as you talked about, in sponsoring some of this, there's lots of information. You can get in touch with Elisa there through her website. Elisa, again, thank you very much, and keep up the great work. And please stay in touch and let me know if there's anything that I can do to help continue to spread the word.
Yeah, what you're doing is awesome. We greatly appreciate giving us this airtime and talking about it, because the more people that know, obviously it makes our job easier. And I think the more people that can get involved, it takes a village. Can't say it enough times.
That's right.
All of us. If we want to change, we've got to help make the change, help invite people in.
I agree 100%. Elisa, again, thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live, and I look forward to having you join me again on a future program.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. All right, it was my very special guest, Elisa Gaudet, the founder and president of the Executive Golf International, and also the founder of Women's Golf Day. And as she just very eloquently pointed out, the next one will be June 5th of 2018. And if you're interested in learning more about this, maybe again, this is for men and women. If you want to learn more about this, maybe you've got a daughter, or maybe your wife might be interested. She's never played golf. Maybe would be interested in stepping out and enjoying this event. They're all over, literally, as she said, this past June was in over 46 countries around the world, over 704 venues. So it's growing and expanding. So there's, I'm sure, going to be one near you, or certainly within a stone's throw. So go to womensgolfday.com to learn more about that. And again, very special thanks as well to the Coach's Corner panel tonight. It was good to have the panel back on the air, Pete Buchanan, Brandon Stooksbury, and of course special guest panelist Brett Cohen. Thanks, guys, for doing a fantastic job, and I always appreciate the Coach's Corner discussions. And just a final thank you to all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning in to Golf Talk Live each and every week. And it's really, I can't express how much pleasure and enjoyment I have with having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs like Elisa stop by the program. And it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have truly helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. The show is growing and expanding, also as is the Women of Golf show with my good friend and partner in that program, co-host LPGA Professional Legends Tour player Sydney Miller. That, of course, is every Tuesday morning here on the blogtalkradio.com network. Go to blogtalkradio.com, type in Women of Golf, Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern, and you can listen to that show as well, and some great women in golf and great business leaders as well that are supporting the women's golf movement, if you will. And also every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, don't forget to join me here on Golf Talk Live. Also a special thanks to some of the sponsors and supporters of the program, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. And it's a great publication here in the southeastern part of the United States. If you're interested in maybe coming down here, whether it be Texas right over here to northwest part of Florida and all states in between here, if you're interested in playing some great tracks down here, get yourself a copy of the South Coast Golf Guide, and you can do so by a number of ways, visiting some of the local courses here if you happen to be in the area, and if you're planning on a trip and not quite here yet, go to southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can request a copy sent to you, or you can just find some of the information right on the website right there and pick up a guide when you come down here to the area for your vacation or maybe a business trip. Also, special thanks to Meredith Kirk Golf out in the Myrtle Beach area. She's a great LPGA teacher professional, as well as an author and entrepreneur, and just a great asset to the game. She's out in the Myrtle Beach area, so just look for meredithkirk.com is her website. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thank you for all of your continue to support. Nikki and, of course, his lovely wife, Tiffany, have always been a good supporter of the program. Nikki, of course, is a golf professional himself, so he understands that we've got to keep doing all we can to spread the word. So thanks, guys, for all of your continued support. Mr. Bernie Pinder, owner and founder of Ontic Golf. Go to onticgolf.com, and you'll see a great line of customized putters, one of which I have, of course, very proudly play each and every time I go out there with my Ontic golf putter. Also, Sean Kelly, owner of LinkedGolfers.com, a great social media platform. Linked Golfers, of course, got its start on LinkedIn.com. It's the largest golf group in there, and of course, he's taken it out to enhance the social media platform with LinkedGolfers.com. So check that out as well. And of course, lastly, but certainly not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions. Thanks, Peter, for all of your continued support over in Ireland. I appreciate it very much, and keep up the great work over there as well. He's a great teach professional as well as a club fitter as well. So thank you, Peter, for all of your support of the program. And on that note, I want to take this final opportunity to once again thank all of the guests on the show tonight. Thank you for giving of your time. I know it's not always easy. We're all busy with other areas in our lives, so I know it's not always easy to give of your time, so I appreciate it very much. And on that note, God bless everybody. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live.